Why do we do the things we do? Today, we're diving deep into this really cool podcast. It's called Mind Matters.
And the best part is it's like actually based on science.
Today we're going to get into something that I think a lot of people are interested in, and that's building a company. Like, what did that look like from the ground up?
Oh, absolutely.
So we found some really insightful work from Ivana Budison.
Yes.
And she kind of laid out this really practical step-by-step guide for how to attract, train, and develop a really strong team.
And it's interesting because whether you are, a seasoned entrepreneur or you're just starting out and thinking about, building your first team, a lot of these principles are really universally applicable and can help set a foundation for success.
For sure. So let's say you are starting from scratch.
Okay.
Right? You are building a company. What's that first step?
Well, Ivana really stresses the importance of defining roles and responsibilities right from the beginning.
Okay.
And it sounds simple enough, but I think oftentimes we can get caught up in, just kind of like generic job titles, and we don't get specific enough about what each position actually entails.
Yeah. So it's more than just like, oh, we need a marketing person.
Exactly.
We need to really drill down into the specifics.
Absolutely. You need to think about, what are the specific tasks, the skills, the expertise required for each position.
Right. And I think, to use a very basic example, even something like a marketing manager.
Right.
I mean, what does that even mean anymore?
Right. Are you looking for someone who's focused on digital marketing, social media, content creation, or maybe a combination of all three?
Yeah.
And each of those areas might require, a very different set of skills and experiences.
For sure. So once we have those roles like laser focused, what's the next step? How do we find the right people?
Well, you need to think about choosing the right selection methods, both to attract and then to evaluate potential candidates.
Okay.
And Ivana is a big proponent of using things like structured interviews to really assess interpersonal skills, and then also work sample tests to see, can people actually apply their skills in a practical setting?
So I've heard of structured interviews, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, so basically it's ensuring that you're asking every candidate the same set of predetermined questions that are all related to, those skills and experiences that you've identified as being essential for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And this really helps to, compare candidates in a fair and objective way, as opposed to just, relying on gut feeling or, kind of like those subjective impressions.
It's something like a standardized test then for a job applicant.
In a way, yeah. But it's not just about checking boxes. You also want to see, how do people think on their feet? How do they communicate? How do they present themselves?
And I imagine that helps reduce bias as well.
Absolutely.
Because you're really just focusing on the criteria.
Exactly.
And not necessarily, other factors that might come into play.
Yeah, it helps you make sure you're making decisions based on merit and qualifications, which in the long run, makes for a stronger team and hopefully a more diverse team as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so what about those work sample tests?
Yeah, so these are really designed to give you a glimpse into someone's practical abilities.
Okay.
So, if you're hiring a software developer, instead of just asking them about their coding experience, you could give them a small coding challenge to complete.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And see, how do they approach the problem? How do they actually write code?
Yeah, so it's really giving them a taste of the job.
Exactly. It's not just about what they say they can do. It's about seeing, can they actually do it?
Yeah.
And that can give you a much better sense of, their skill level and how they might perform on the job.
I like that. Okay. So Ivana also talks about realistic job previews.
Yes.
What is that all about?
It's really about, being upfront with candidates about both the challenges and the rewards of the position.
Okay.
So, don't just sugarcoat things and present this really rosy picture.
Right.
Be honest about, the workload, the pressures, the potential downsides of the job as well.
I feel like that might scare some people off, though.
Yeah, and it might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually a smart strategy.
Okay.
Because by being transparent, you're more likely to attract those candidates who are genuinely a good fit for the role and for the company culture.
So it's kind of like setting expectations from the very beginning.
And weeding out those who, might not be up for the challenge or might not be a good fit in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense.
No.
So now we spend a lot of time talking about finding these candidates.
Yeah.
But what happens after we've actually hired them?
Well, then it's all about onboarding.
Okay.
And this is a step that I think a lot of companies don't give enough attention to, but it's really crucial.
Yeah, let's talk about onboarding.
Yeah, so it's all about creating a smooth and welcoming transition for your new hires.
Okay.
Making them feel valued and integrated into the team and setting them up for success from day one.
So more than just like, here's your desk and here's the paperwork you've got to fill out.
Exactly, much more than that.
Okay.
And Ivana actually proposes this great model called the 5Cs model for onboarding, which really breaks down these key elements of a successful onboarding experience.
I love a good model. Lay it on me.
All right, so the first C is for compliance.
Okay.
And this really means, making sure that new hires understand all of the company's policies and procedures, any legal requirements.
So like the nitty-gritty stuff.
Exactly, the essentials.
Okay, what's next?
All right, so the second C is for clarity.
Okay.
And this is all about ensuring that, people are crystal clear about their roles and responsibilities, what's expected of them.
Okay, no room for ambiguity here.
Exactly. And then the third C is connection.
Okay.
And this is where you focus on helping new hires really build those relationships with their colleagues.
Yeah.
Feel like they're part of the team, establish a sense of belonging.
I think that's especially important in a remote or even a hybrid work environment.
Absolutely, where you don't necessarily have those like water cooler moments.
Oh, exactly. Okay, so what about the fourth C?
All right, so the fourth C is confidence.
Okay.
And this is about equipping new hires with the tools, the resources, the training they need to feel confident in their ability to do their job effectively.
You want them to hit the ground running.
Exactly. And then finally, the fifth C is culture.
Okay.
And this is where you introduce new hires to, the company's values, its mission, the overall work environment.
Well, why?
Exactly. So they understand, why they're doing what they're doing and how their work contributes to the bigger picture.
I love that.
Okay, so by addressing all 5 of these C's, you can create a really great onboarding experience that, sets people up for success and hopefully fosters that sense of engagement and loyalty from the very beginning.
And that's going to help with retention and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, studies have shown that companies with strong onboarding programs have, higher retention rates, they see increased productivity, and generally a more positive work environment.
A win-win for sure.
Absolutely.
So we've got our rock stars in place. They're feeling good. They're part of the team now. How do we make sure that they continue to grow and develop their skills?
That's a great question. And that brings us to the next step, which is training needs analysis.
How do we ensure that our team is, continuing to grow and develop and keep those skills sharp?
Well, that's where training comes in. And Ivana talks about this idea of a training needs analysis,
Okay.
which is really just a systematic way to identify skills gaps and then figure out how to tailor your training programs to meet those needs.
I like that. Okay, so what does a training needs analysis look like?
Well, it's actually a 3-level approach. So first you've got the organizational analysis. And this is where you're really taking that big picture look. What are the company's strategic goals? What are the industry trends? What's happening in the market?
So where are we headed as a company? What skills do we need to get there?
Exactly. And then you move on to the task analysis.
So,
and here you're really breaking down each job role into those specific tasks and figuring out what skills are needed to do those tasks effectively.
So do they have what they need to do their jobs well?
Exactly. And then finally, you've got the individual analysis. And this is where you're looking at each individual employee.
Right.
Assessing their current skills and knowledge and, seeing where are those areas where they might need some additional development.
Okay, so we're taking into account the individual, the task, and the overall organization.
It's a holistic approach.
Yeah, it's like we're creating a map for success.
Exactly. So once you have that analysis, you can start thinking about, well, what are the specific training programs or, development measures that we can implement?
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, workshops are always a great option for, helping employees deepen their expertise in specific areas.
Yeah, workshops can be really helpful.
They can be a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing Ivana mentions is mentorship programs, pairing a less experienced employee with a more seasoned mentor.
Mentorship is so powerful.
It is. I mean, having someone to guide you and, share their insights, provide feedback that can be invaluable.
Okay, cool. What else?
Well, there's also cross-training.
Cross-training.
Yeah, this is where employees get to, learn about different roles or departments within the company.
I think that's a good way to break down silos.
Exactly. And it also helps to build, more adaptable and well-rounded teams.
Yeah, they can cover for each other if someone's
Yep,
out.
exactly. It builds that flexibility.
Okay, so we're not just focusing on the individual here. We're really trying to build a high-performing team.
Exactly. It's not just about individual development. It's about how do we bring all of these pieces together?
Yeah, make the dream work. So what are some tips for actually building that team?
Well, Ivana suggests, things like team building activities. So, think brainstorming sessions or problem solving challenges or even, just fun social events.
Yeah, just getting to know each other.
Exactly. Help people connect on a personal level.
So that rapport.
Right, because that really helps to create, that sense of camaraderie, that strong bond within the team.
It's all about the vibes.
Exactly. And it can also improve, communication and collaboration, problem-solving skills, all those good things.
Okay, love it.
And then, we talked about cross-training earlier, which is also a really important part of this.
Yeah, helps that flexibility and adaptability.
Right. If someone's out sick or, you've got a big project coming up,
Mm.
having that cross-trained team can really make a big difference.
So how do we know if we're actually succeeding at building a high-performing team? Like, what's the benchmark?
That's a good question. And Ivana actually mentions Tuckman's stages of group development in her presentation.
I've heard of Tuckman's model.
Yeah.
It's about like the different phases that a team goes through, right?
Exactly. So it starts with forming, everyone's kind of new, they're getting to know each other, they're figuring out their roles and responsibilities.
It's like the first day of school.
Exactly. People are a little bit cautious, maybe a little reserved.
Sure.
And then you move into storming.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is where, some conflicts might arise or disagreements, as people start to, assert their opinions and ideas.
So it can get a little messy.
They can, but, conflict can be a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as it's, managed constructively.
Right. We need healthy conflict.
Exactly. So, encourage open communication. Make sure you've got those healthy conflict resolution strategies in place.
Okay. And if we get through that, what's next?
Well, then you move into norming, and this is where, things start to settle down a little bit.
Okay.
Roles and responsibilities become clearer. Trust starts to build, a sense of shared purpose emerges. So we're starting to work as a unit. Yeah. Exactly. Moving from me to we.
I like that.
And then if the team can maintain that momentum, they reach the performing stage.
Okay.
This is where, they're really hitting their stride.
This is what we want.
Exactly. They're achieving their goals, they're exceeding expectations, and they're enjoying the process.
Okay. So we want to get to performing.
Yes. And then finally, there's adjourning, which is, when the team disbands, maybe because the project is complete or, there's been some kind of restructuring.
Right.
But even though it's an ending, it's important to, acknowledge that stage and celebrate the team's accomplishments.
I like that. So by understanding these stages, we can kind of anticipate some of the challenges.
Exactly. And you can, create an environment that really supports that high performance.
Okay. So let's say we've done all this great work. We've hired the right people. We've onboarded them. Well, we've provided training and development opportunities.
Yeah.
How do we actually measure the effectiveness of all these efforts?
Well, you need to evaluate, are these initiatives actually working?
All right. Are we getting a return on our investment?
Exactly. And Ivana recommends a combination of approaches. Okay, things like feedback surveys.
Okay.
Can be a really great way to gather input from employees. How are they experiencing, different aspects of, their work?
I think it's important for those surveys to be anonymous.
Yeah.
So people feel comfortable sharing, honestly.
Absolutely. Another important tool is performance reviews.
Yeah.
This allows managers to give that feedback on individual performance, set goals, identify areas for growth.
Yeah, I think performance reviews can be really helpful if they're done well.
Exactly. The key is to approach them as a conversation.
Yeah.
A collaborative conversation about development, not just, a top-down evaluation.
For sure.
And then Ivana also talks about the importance of continuous monitoring.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, it could be, tracking certain key performance indicators or just, observing team interactions or having regular check-ins with employees.
So we're always keeping an eye on things.
Exactly. It's about creating that culture of, open communication and ongoing feedback, not just relying on, an annual review.
I like that. So we're always adapting and evolving.
Exactly. And by, consistently gathering data and analyzing trends, you can make adjustments as needed and, ensure that your efforts are really aligned with your goals.
Okay, this is great. I really like how Ivana's approach is really both individual and collective.
Yeah.
Just thinking about the individual employee, but also how do we build this amazing team and this thriving company culture?
It's about creating a company where everyone feels, supported and empowered and, motivated to do their best work.
Yeah, it's that holistic approach.
Exactly. And speaking of holistic approaches, there's one more concept from Ivana's presentation that I think is worth highlighting.
Right.
It's the two-pizza philosophy.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Two-pizza philosophy.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this two-pizza philosophy.
Okay, so it's a pretty simple idea, but it's pretty powerful. I think the rule basically suggests that if a team can't be fed by two pizzas,
Well,
it's probably too big.
really, that's it.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little bit quirky,
It does.
but there's a deeper meaning there.
Yeah.
It's all about, keeping teams small and agile so that you can really foster good communication. You can avoid some of those, pitfalls of bureaucracy that you often see with larger teams.
Okay, yeah. I mean, when you have a smaller team, everyone has more of a chance to, contribute their ideas.
Right.
And things can move more quickly.
Exactly. And it promotes, a sense of ownership and accountability.
Right.
There's less chance of groupthink. People might feel more comfortable sharing their ideas if they're not in this, massive group.
Right. It's less intimidating.
Exactly.
So it's not really about the pizza.
No, not at all.
It's about creating that ideal team size.
Exactly.
Right.
Finding that sweet spot where a team can really thrive.
I love that. And I think, this whole conversation has been really eye-opening. I mean, Ivana's presentation has given us so much to think about.
It's a great framework.
It is from defining those roles to finding the right people, onboarding them properly, providing those training and development opportunities, and even, thinking about the size of our teams.
Yeah, it's a really holistic approach.
It is. And I think it's a great reminder that, building a successful company isn't just about the bottom line.
Right.
It's about investing in our people.
Absolutely.
It's about creating that, positive work environment where everyone feels valued and supported.
And empowered, to do their best work.
Exactly. And I think, that's what's going to ultimately lead to success, both for the individual and for the company as a whole.
Agreed.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've talked about Ivana's two-pizza rule and how sometimes smaller teams can be more effective. But I want you to consider this. If a team that can't be fed by two pizzas is too big, what might this philosophy reveal about the ideal size of teams for fostering innovation in today's rapidly evolving business world? Food for thought.
Absolutely something to chew on.
Until next time, keep those entrepreneurial spirits burning bright. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling inspired to start applying some of this stuff to my own life.
Me too. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
For sure.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what deep dives are for, right?
Absolutely.
So until next time, happy exploring.
Yeah. Keep those brains working.